Trojan fans, welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined alongside, we like to call him triple-double, Connor Morrissette. There was a post on the P asking why he's triple-double. It's those three different instances of double letters in his last name, Morrissette. My F45 workout this morning, Connor, again, called triple-double. You had to do like 3 sets of 30 work, 10 rest, 30 work, 10 rest, 30 work. And you go around the room, you do 9 stations, and you do that twice. So it's triple, like 3 sets at each station. You do the whole thing twice. So
wow.
Triple-double workout this morning.
And you still made the show.
I still did. Yeah.
Great work.
That was one of my better Hello Trojan fans because I'm excited because there's actual football happening this weekend. Freaking tomorrow night, Colorado's playing. You remember them. Former conference foe, no longer. USC's moved on from that. We got a really exciting show today because we got a lot to talk about with USC playing LSU this weekend. Just want to let you guys know if you want to subscribe to the Peristyle Podcast, you can do that on any of the podcasting platforms. If you're on the Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can also just leave us a 5-star rating. Apple, you can leave us a review. That'd be great. If you have a question, send us an email, podcast@uscfootball.com. And if you want to leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text, you can do either one of those with the number 424-254-9141. So good stuff there. I'm going to turn Connor up a little bit. If you're watching us live on YouTube, what you can do is leave a comment. And if I'm looking at it, I will try to do that while I'm hosting. And look at the comments and put them up on the screen. If you have any questions, you can put them in there as well. I need to thank our sponsor before I turn Connor up, Trader Joe's. They've been amazing to us. I go every week and I go in and pick up some stuff. This week, I got some of those, the corn chip dippers. Those are really good. I don't know if you've had those before, Connor. And the packs of guacamole. So they're packaged guacamole, corn chip dippers right in the guac. You can get a little of the salsa too, but I just did corn chip and guac, and that was it was pretty spectacular.
I did something similar Saturday. I don't know if it was the corn chips, but got the guac and a different kind of chip and had a very nice Sunday or Saturday evening with those. So shout out Trader Joe's, and always a great sponsor for this program. We really appreciate it.
Yes, Trader Joe's have been awesome, so thank you for them. And if you're going to come to Las Vegas this weekend, we are having 3 different meetups. I think the last time we talked, we didn't announce all those, but if we put them on the uscfootball.com message boards, you can see the info there. I've tweeted it out, and I'll keep tweeting it out, but we're going to have a meetup on Friday. All of these meetups are going to be at the Flanker Sports Bar in Mandalay Bay. The cool thing about Flanker is you are like literally right next to the walkway to go to from Mandalay Bay over. You walk across the freeway and go right to Allegiant Stadium. So I think it's about a 10-minute walk from there. So it's a perfect place pregame to tailgate because you don't have to drive over to Allegiant and park, which is a nightmare. Even taking the shuttles over there, it takes forever. So you could park over at an MGM property like Mandalay Bay and then just walk across. But Flanker is going to be there. So 6:30 p.m. on Friday, we will have a meetup. So if you're getting there early in Vegas, like you should, because it's Vegas, why not? We'll have people there. I think we have like 75 or so RSVP'd so far. Connor will be there. I'll be there. Shotgun will be there. Chris Trevino will be there. We'll have Trader Joe's bags to give away. Speaking of Trader Joe's. And I have like 200 bags. I have a whole case of bags. They're probably going to go fast because we've got way more RSVPs than we thought. Because we're also having another one Saturday afternoon, like 4 o'clock. Because there's 3 great games that are going to be going on. Well, 3 games that involve like USC people. So Michigan is hosting Fresno State. Notre Dame, USC plays at the end of the year. They're at Texas A&M. So they're 2 like toughest games, or the first game and the last game, I think, for Notre Dame. And then Oregon plays Idaho, whatever. But there'll be some great football on Saturday afternoon. We'll give away bags then too. I want to try to save some bags for Sunday. The problem is I think there's like over 300 people that have tried to RSVP. We had to cap it at like 250 for Sunday at like noon. But if you come Saturday, if you haven't RSVP'd yet for Sunday, you want to come, show up Saturday. We'll talk to the venue to see if there's anything we can do, but it's just too many people that have said they want to come. So it's a great problem to have, but I feel bad. And you can't bring bags into the stadium, so we're probably going to try to give away most of the bags Friday and Saturday. But that's kind of our weekend plans. Are you excited for it? I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, very excited, especially there will be games Friday too, right? I think that's when everything gets going too. There's another big game that we can watch at Flanker. I forget who's playing that Friday night. Is Utah playing or something?
Stanford TCU.
Okay, yeah. So another I don't know about marquee game, but another game that I'm interested to watch because I love to watch everything so early in the year. See who's good, see who's bad. Help me bet as the year goes on. So I'm excited for that. Excited to meet some USC fans, and so excited for the game, Ryan. As I've said every week on the show, it's fun to talk about camp. It's fun to be there, talk to the players and coaches, and watch a little bit. But the game action, there's nothing that can replicate that, and I'm ready to see a game and have some takeaways on it for sure.
I am for sure. DNA Matrix System says this show takes too long to get to the point. Well, thanks in the YouTube chat there. If you're not going to Vegas, I'm sorry, but that's a thing that's happening. This is big meet. We're doing 3 different meetups in Las Vegas, so we want to let people know what's going on with that. So they also had a question from USC Football for Life. So we have to RSVP. Or can we just show up? So for the Friday and Saturday thing, we were just trying to get numbers, but it's getting close now. I think we understand about how many people are going to come. It'd be nice if you want to email me, Ryan@uscfootball.com. Let me know if you're coming. Sunday, we can't take any more people. So we were asking for RSVPs because we wanted to see how many people we got. We got over 250. It's over 300 now. People have tried at least, and we've told them they're not going to be able to be accommodated. But yeah, but show up Friday or Saturday. It shouldn't be a problem. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I love Vegas. You know me. Vegas is great. Just to see games there is cool. Yeah, I just love going there. So what we want to do is give a preview of this USC LSU game and kind of talk about what's happened at practice. Practice is a little different this week, and we just found out this morning. Typically, we would get the depth chart on Wednesday, and we were told this morning by a USC representative that we won't get the depth chart until Thursday. Does it mean a lot? No, because we've seen depth charts where people are listed as starters, they don't even play. So, whatever. But it's not the end-all, be-all, but we will get it. The reason is this week has shifted because the game is actually on Sunday. It's not on Saturday. So we went to practice yesterday, and I was surprised they didn't have full pads on because usually do on Tuesday, but it was really a Monday practice. And so it was a shorter window we get to watch. So today will be their Tuesday practice where should be full pads, longer practice, usually the longest practice of the week. And then they'll have a half pads practice on Thursday. That'll be the Wednesday practice to kind of move everything out. They're flying out on Saturday, and of course the game is going to be on Sunday. But yeah, I was a little shocked yesterday, Connor. I didn't realize that, but yeah, no, they weren't full pads. I'm like, uh-oh, is this like a Clay Helton thing or something? But yeah, it was just because it was the Monday practice, not the Tuesday practice.
Just one day behind, nothing to worry about.
Yes. No, that's okay. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. One thing we did get out of practice yesterday, so Lincoln Riley spoke. We got a lot of players. I don't think there was a lot revealed. I asked Miller Moss how he's grown, this camp, and he's like, hey, good question. And it was, he's kind of talked about mentally. He's like, it wasn't like a physical thing through camp, but really just sort of mentally, preparing yourself and being ready to be that starting quarterback at USC. So just, how he's kind of progressed and a lot of leadership talk. Jacoby Lane jokes. A lot of people were asked about him being a jokester, which he is, and he's really funny. And just Deuce Robinson did his whole interview shirtless, and it was just 6'6", in shape. You're just like, all right, you should look at him I think he's going to do some big things. But Lincoln Riley did reveal that the captains aren't going to be the typical captains. It'll be similar to what they did in the Holiday Bowl, and there'll be potentially new captains every week. So that was kind of an interesting. We were waiting to see. Usually they announce at Salute to Troy. That happened, I think, on Friday or something, or late last week. So they'll have the big event on campus where alumni come out and it's like a barbecue and everything over on the track field. But they didn't announce the captains then, but he did yesterday for the LSU game, and then they'll potentially change going forward. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that, Connor.
The 5 captains for LSU, Miller Moss, Jonah Monheim, Kyron Hudson on offense, and then on defense, the 2 brothers, Achille Arnold and Easton Mascarenas Arnold. I like what they're doing, Ryan. I think last year maybe the staff felt a little burned about how it ended, of course, and maybe there were some guys who were captains at the beginning of the season who did earn that honor, and then as the year went on, they didn't follow through with that and didn't earn it. Otherwise, I don't know exactly why Riley would choose to go this route, but I think it's cool. I wonder how every week it's going to be voted on specifically or how it will work, because Riley explained he meets with the Leadership Council, which is a group of older players on USC, the leaders of the team, and that's sort of what they discussed and that's what they decided on. But each week, is it a vote from those players? Is the coaching staff more involved? Can Riley just hear what everyone says and then pick the 5? I'd like to get a little bit more insight into how the process exactly will work. I like it, though. I think what happened last year in the Holiday Bowl, you have to earn your place, and maybe last season some guys came in and they just expected to play right away and there wasn't a lot of competition and they played and it wasn't great or whatever happened. I think Riley learned a lot of lessons from last season, and how he's doing the captains is evidence of that. So I'm cool with it. I think it's going to be good for this season, and I like it because, hey, 1 week you maybe have a bad week and you don't earn that. Well, you learn from that, and then you have the opportunity to be a captain that following week. It'll be interesting to see how many guys get that captain designation, because I think the 5 that were picked, will see them a lot. I imagine we'll see Kamari Ramsey too, the safety, some other guys as well. Maybe we'll see a guy we don't expect. If a scout team player has a great week, that could be fun. So it's good for us too, in the sense like we'll get an article now every week.
Yeah, we'll get. Oh, that's good. We get content.
Yeah, the captains for
we're content creators.
This game are XYZ. I like it. I don't think it can really hurt in any way, and I'm excited to see who the guys are that emerge as the year goes on.
Yeah, I mean, you had a situation where like a Shane Lee would be named captain and then not really playing that much, right? I mean, something like that you're kind of trying to avoid, but I like it. It gives, some incentive, week in and week out, where you're trying to be there. Like, is Miller Moss going to be a captain every single week? I don't know. I mean, if he has a bad game, is he not a captain that week? I mean, it'll be interesting to kind of see. Is there going to be like guys get bumped off or whatever? I mean, it's funny, the 2 brothers, like 2 former Oregon State players, captains, coming into this. And then on the offensive side, homegrown players, Kyron Hudson, Miller Moss, and Jonah Monheim. But, how much does that rotate? Like if, Emmanuel Pregnon has like a huge game against some tough defensive linemen, does he get named captain? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all works.
I'm excited to see it as well, and I'm really excited for this game on Sunday, Ryan, because
oh my God,
they're talking. Did you see what the LSU offensive tackle had to say?
You put a story on this.
Yeah.
About that. Yeah. What? So
Will Campbell, he has a chance to be the not first overall pick, but the first offensive tackle taken in the NFL draft. He was a great recruit. This is his 3rd year. He's played from the jump at LSU, and he's a great interview. I enjoyed listening to his 2 interviews this week. He was asked just about the game plan, and instead of saying all the right things, he said, we're going to run the ball. That's not something we're hiding or trying to keep quiet. I'm telling everybody right now, we're going to run the football. Our running backs are big, fast, and powerful guys. I'm just excited for them. And the way he said it, he has that southern drawl. He's from Louisiana. He said it very confidently with a little bit of swagger. Like, they feel like they're going to be able to push USC around a little bit. And that's interesting because the whole offseason, Lincoln Riley, what has he done? You need to gain weight. We need to be better in the trenches. We have a new defensive coaching staff. We are not going to be pushed around. We were pushed around way too much last season. So it's 2 forces that are meeting head on here, and someone's going to come out on top on Sunday. That was one of the most fascinating quotes that I've heard from this week, because with the USC guys, you're going to get a lot of stuff that doesn't really – it's all surface level. Yeah, I'm excited. I asked Deuce Robinson, can you give us a prediction who's going to be the leading receiver this year? And he said, I think all of us are going to play really well. LSU, it was nice to hear Campbell say, hey, we're going to run the ball, and it's their job to stop us. Let's see what they can do. That offensive line is really good. USC is going to be tested in this first game, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, there's some questions at center for LSU, but, 2 tackles are, maybe, 2 of the best in the country. And if you remember, like, USC playing Washington last year, Michael Penix, obviously, Heisman Trophy finalist, throwing for yard, throwing all over the place. Washington didn't need to throw the ball against USC because they just could run it down their throats. And they weren't a team that was good at running the football typically for the season. They relied on Penix and passing. And you have to avoid that stuff. So when a team's coming in and saying, hey, we're going to try to push you around, I don't care how good Miller Moss plays. I don't care how great the wide receivers are, or Woody Marks has a great game, all that stuff. You have to be able to not let them dictate the pace of the game and just take control by squeezing the life out of you, by being able to hand it off and get 5, 6, 7 yards a carry, similar or breaking big plays all the time. You got to get a 2-yard stop and then make them think about, well, maybe they want to run it again. Well, now it's 3rd and 6. Okay, so you have to do that instead of there's a lot of 3rd and 2s or 2nd and 3s. So I feel like that's a huge. The biggest thing for me is how well D'Anton Lynn, this USC defense, can slow down the run game. They were really good at UCLA last year against the run, but different personnel and things like that. LSU is going to want to do it. Both teams are breaking in new quarterbacks. What's your favorite thing for a quarterback is if you can hand the ball off and get a bunch of yards, your guys are more open. Your passing game opens up more. Where it's different if you're 3rd and 8 all the time and you got to complete a pass. So you can do play action on 3rd and 2 and you pick up some yards and all that kind of stuff. So I agree. Like, this is the key for USC. You have to be able to stop LSU from running the football, controlling the game, because that's the way they can just push you around and kind of just take over no matter almost what you do. Caleb Williams running around and all that stuff. You can't do much when the other team is just running the ball at will. And we saw that so many times last year, especially late in the season.
The good news for USC, so that offensive line for LSU is so good, but they really don't have a proven running back coming back. Sometimes when the line's so good, that doesn't necessarily matter, but at least it's not like you're going into a game, it's like, okay, this offensive line is amazing, and they have this Heisman Trophy favorite running back, so USC doesn't have to worry about that. Last season, Jaden Daniels was the team's leading rusher by a wide margin in the quarterback, and then Logan Diggs, their second leading rusher, he transferred to Ole Miss. He wanted maybe, I don't know what he wanted, because it seems like he would have been the starter, but he wanted to go somewhere else, and now so LSU has a group of 4 guys who I don't think really anyone knows outside of the program what their running back rotation will look like. Josh Williams and John Emery are 2 older guys. Caleb Jackson's a sophomore, and then Caden Durham is a true freshman out of Texas. He was one of the top-ranked recruits at running back in his class. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets some bird in this game, just because it does look like it's still a competition a little bit. So the line is great, but there's some unproven talent at the running back spot for LSU, and that could help USC for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Let's put up a couple pictures here. We have 66 lucky dude Ryan. Our defensive scheme and personnel choices made it easy to run on us. No, I think that's true.
That's definitely true.
I mean, there was a lot of that, but you still have to stop it. I think there was encouraging signs. What we saw just tackling wise in the bowl game, even though D'Anton Lynn hadn't kind of taken over yet, but you sort of removed some of the. It seemed like there was a lot of handcuffing going on for some of the players, just because I guess that was the most baffling thing, is that you didn't feel like you were learning from what was holding the team back. If you looked at it and you're like, well, guys are kind of confused. They're not sure where they should be. And then they're not making the play. Logically, you would say, well, let's not have them be confused and put them in position to make a play. And that never happened. It was more Alex Grinch kind of stuck to, this is our system, and they'll just have to figure it out. And they never figured it out, and they never were making plays. It seemed like that sort of went away in the bowl game, and guys kind of knew what they were doing, and they just went out and made plays. And you're hoping that they're going to be play free, loose, fast, not thinking, not looking at a wristband before the ball snapped, and then going, where am I? What am I supposed to be doing? But, having a purpose where you're not going to stop everything, but you could stop a lot more than what you were stopping last year. So, yeah, I agree with the comment there. Schematically, it hurt them last year, and it should be a benefit this year.
Certainly. UCLA, they stopped the run at the second highest clip last season. I think they gave up 80 yards a game, which was second in the country. It's so fascinating to talk about D'Anton Lynn and how this USC team will look like UCLA, the similarities, the differences. Obviously different players, obviously tougher schedule here at USC. But that UCLA offense was so bad last season that the defense would consistently get put in pretty bad positions, and Lynn, to his credit, would get that team out of those positions a lot of the time. Just looking at the schedule last year, Oregon State ran on UCLA a little bit, but there really weren't too many games, really any games, where it was like, okay, UCLA, they couldn't stop the run on against this opponent. It was the games they lost outside of that Oregon State one where they gave up 36 points. It was more of the offense is terrible, and that's why we're losing this game. It had nothing to do with Lynn's defense. He did such a great job. So I think the rushing defense for USC has to get a little bit better. And people will hear that and say, well, last year you said it would get better because they had better players and Alex Grinch was still here. Just the scheme and everything, like it has to get a little bit better. If it doesn't, then I don't know anything. I don't think anyone knows anything if it doesn't get a little bit better because last year was so bad. So it has to get a little bit better, and I think there's a chance that it could get a lot better. The fun part of this LSU matchup is you're not going against Utah State. You're not going up against a Fresno State, a team that you probably should beat. You're going up against an LSU team that they have really high goals. They have high aspirations. They have maybe the best offensive line you're going to face. So all this offseason work that you've done, it's put to the test in that first game. You're in a TV window all by yourself. All eyes are on you. It's a pass or fail. You either did the things needed to get the job done in this game or you didn't, and we're going to find out in this first game.
Yeah, I think this is just a great matchup.
Yeah.
Two ranked teams. So many similarities, like where did the two last Heisman Trophy quarterbacks come from? LSU last year and USC the year before. They're both replacing those guys with guys that have been around the program a while, saw them have a pretty good bowl game. They both had absolute trash defenses last year, got new defensive coordinators, both hired their defensive coordinators from within the conference. USC takes Denton Lynn from a rival, and LSU went to Missouri to get Baker, but, and just high expectations for getting the defense better. I think both really tried to hit some home runs in the transfer portal at the interior defensive line, and neither one of them were able to. It was more of the elite NIL programs got the big defensive linemen like Oregon and Miami and stuff. So I think Brian Kelly would have loved to add some more help. I think USC would have too. So there's some similarities there. I think the biggest difference is probably like LSU's offensive line outside of center looks really, really good. And USC, has some pieces, but it's probably more of a work in progress, unproven kind of thing. And I think playmaker-wise, USC has LSU. I think LSU can run the ball, but I don't think they have the elite receivers. They had a couple, first-round draft picks go wide receiver last year.
Too.
Yeah. USC lost, Taj Washington, Brendan Rice, but I think I would probably rather have the group of four sophomores than that crew. So I think USC has a chance to be elite at wide receiver and a lot of depth and stuff there too. So I think they're probably the biggest advantage for USC. I would go with wide receivers, going against the defensive backs. And for LSU, it's probably USC's unproven defensive line and their, elite tackles on the offensive line.
I'd agree with that. I think that secondary for LSU is inexperienced. So even though the USC receiving core is inexperienced as well, you just like that matchup because the LSU guys are inexperienced, but on paper don't have as much talent as that USC receiving core. So I agree with you on that matchup. And yeah, that offensive line is a matchup problem for USC for sure. And all offseason though, what did Denton Lynn say when we had him on our show here, Ryan, when a few months after he was hired, not right when he was hired, he had a chance to work with them a little bit. He said, I've been the most impressed with the defensive line. And Lincoln Riley said on Monday on Trojans Live, I'm the most excited to watch our defensive line. I've been skeptical and I've gotten a lot of crap for it this week, but the coaches they are high on this defensive line, and they think that they will be able to stand up to LSU and they will be able to get the job done. So I think, to your point, that's probably the biggest matchup that I'm looking at from a USC perspective, or I'm nervous about. I'm a little nervous about the USC offensive line too, but on paper, yeah, I don't like that matchup at all. The coaching staff seems confident about it, so if you take them at their word, then you got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I think with the defensive staff, I'll take them at their word. When they're mentioning guys like Gavin Meyer, you're like, oh, okay, weren't sure. He was a rotational guy at Wyoming. Can he really come in and be a stud for USC? Where they be saying glowing things about Kobe Pepe. We just haven't seen look at him and go, wow, that guy's gonna be dominant. But they've all got bigger and stronger and faster this offseason. Just the attention to detail as far as changing the physical makeup. A guy like Nate Clifton going from 275 to close to 300. You just see a lot of that stuff up and down the line where it seems like they're taking it more seriously than you're wondering, what were you doing last year? And there was some confidence last year. I think Alex Grinch was, when you talk to him, he would admit if things were terrible, he would kind of talk about it, but he would kind of talk about it in a long-winded sort of way. So you would ask less questions and stuff. But I think he wasn't ducking anything, but it just never seemed to be like answers as far as like, well, they did that. Like when you're having, I forget who it was, one of the defensive linemen or something covering like a running back out of the backfield. The answer was like, yeah, well, they put us in a bad spot, and not like, well, we're not going to let that happen again. It was sort of like, well, if they do that again, that's how we do it. So he's going to have to cover it, instead of like coming up with fixes to the problems. It was sort of like, here's reasons why that happened. Like, well, you got to fix it. Why are they confused? There was just a lot of that kind of stuff. But I felt like there was some confidence last year. I mean, even Lincoln Riley, I think, was pretty confident the defense was going to get better, and gave us, I thought, a good explanation of why he kept Alex Grinch when he did. It was the wrong decision, obviously. Like, he shouldn't have kept him. But there was some confidence there. But your point, I feel like there's a different level of confidence now, that they seem like everyone knows how bad they were, and they feel like they're going to be a lot better. And it's going to be one of those prove it things, as opposed to we're going to be like, hey, we're so good, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just going to be go out and like show everyone, look, see, we are better on defense. And if they do it, kudos, and I think that's a good sign for the rest of the season. If they don't, knowing how confident they were coming into this game, that's probably not a good sign.
Speaking of confidence, Greedy Vance, he tweeted this week, I'm just so thankful, man. God has really displayed his favor over my life despite everything I've been through. It's only right I capitalize on my opportunity for him and my family, because the last 4 years of my college career were never, and I mean never, like this. So he's feeling confident. He's feeling good about USC's defense. Greedy Vance, of course, the projected starting nickelback for the Trojans on that defense. Seems like he's feeling really good, and I get it. The vibes and the cohesion with this group, it's so different. That's something that everyone's picked up on this offseason. To your point, Ryan, why is there more confidence? Well, Alex Grinch is gone, but what Danton Lynn did last season. Eric Henderson, why are you confident in him? Well, he was with the Rams, and he coached Aaron Donald. Tough to not be confident in him. And the Rams, every year, I feel like they overachieved. They had a bad roster last year. I don't think they made the playoffs. I can't remember. I'm not a big Rams fan. I'm sorry. But they were like competitive. It wasn't as bad of a season as some people anticipated. Of course, they won a Super Bowl not too long ago as well. You have a guy like Doug Belk. Why are you confident in him? Well, he was a defensive coordinator at Houston. And Matt Entz, he's won national championships at the FCS level. So to your point about confidence, the defensive staff, they have that all over the place. And it's clear why. They're more experienced. They have better pedigree than a lot of the guys who were here before. And I agree with you. There's more confidence heading into the season when we haven't played a snap of football yet, but that's deserved because of who Lincoln Riley's hired. I did think, though, it was interesting. Brian Kelly said this week, he was asked about his team and his track record of success, winning all those 10-game seasons in a row. And he said, it's all about the players. You need to have good players. You need to have good players. And I don't think he was talking about USC at all. I think, though, if we could give him some truth serum and we could ask him, hey, who on paper has more talent? Is it LSU? Is it USC? I think he would say LSU. LSU's recruited a little bit better than USC has these past two cycles. And that, to me, I think the world of this defensive staff, but that, to me, is in the heart of my prediction, why I think LSU has a better chance to win this game than USC. I just think as a program, they have a little bit more talent. They're a little bit more ahead on the offensive line, of course, and I think that's going to go a long way on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see. We had a comment, and if you're watching live on YouTube, thanks so much. I didn't see how many people we got. Wow, we have like almost 200 people watching live. That's on 11 a.m. That's nice. Thank you. You guys are excited for football too, so thank you for doing that. If you do have questions, I'll star them and get to them later. So you just put question in the comment, and I will take a look. Andrew says, confidence boosted from that Holiday Bowl. They played for each other as a team, and you could tell. And I think that's a really good point, because we have seen, and the cohesion word has come up a lot, there was just a lot more cohesion. There just seemed like, for whatever reason, last year the offensive line was more of some mercenary dudes coming in. And it seems like they're more tied together. Even the defensive, with the new defensive staff, the existing players, the new transfers coming in, having guys like Easton Mascarenas Arnold, Achille Arnold being, team captains in week one, being leaders on the squad, even though they're new guys coming in, it just seems like it's fit together better. And I don't know. College is different than the NFL, where it's, who's got the best schemes, who's got the best players, all that stuff. There's a lot going on with 18 to 22-year-olds and stuff, and team chemistry with 100 dudes or whatever on the team. I think it has an impact on results in the field. And I think the confidence and the team chemistry is a lot better this year, and we'll see how far that takes them. But it could give them a boost in this opener, where the all-off season, where they finished so poorly outside of the Holiday Bowl. They want to come out and prove something. So you give them an edge there where they definitely feel like they have something to prove from even the new guys from what happened last year.
And Riley said on Trojans Live Monday, he was asked, does this team have an identity yet? And he said, we still need some more time to go by, but we're starting to see it a little bit. He talked about how power is in numbers with this group, and the power is in the masses. It's not a group of individuals, it's a team. And he said when he looks back on some of the best coached teams that he's had from Oklahoma and from USC, the teams that were really together, they are the ones that either had great seasons or overachieved. And he didn't come out and directly say that's what's going to happen with USC this year, but I believe he thinks that USC has a chance to get to that point because the team is so tightly knit, because they're so bonded together. And that's just clear. I mean, those sophomore wide receivers, those guys, they frolic out to practice, and they all love each other. Jacoby Lane used the word love a bunch yesterday. He was asked about his relationship with Miller Moss, and he said it's a relationship based in love. I do think there's a lot of genuine connection and love on this team, and I agree with you. I do think that could go a long way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Anything else from the LSU side that's sort of standing out? I know there've been some center potential issues there. I mean, if you don't know that both tackles are amazing, and they're probably going to be high NFL draft picks, but there's been some shakeup at center. I don't know if you know anything going on there.
They have a new center, but their center who was he's now in the NFL. He's a free agent. The Patriots picked him up, and he was not very good in training camp. So maybe it's good he's gone. But I'm not being nice. DJ Chester, the redshirt freshman, he was one of the top-ranked offensive linemen in the 2023 class, I believe, and now he's in his second year. He played 4 games as a reserve center last year. He's now the starting center. I guess what we've heard, and it seems like it's spread like wildfire out of LSU's camp, he's had some issues snapping, so that'll certainly be something to watch. He's the one new guy on that great offensive line. They do have 2 injuries that they're dealing with, according to Brian Kelly. Miles Frazier, who I believe is a starting right guard, he's probable to play with an injury. And one of their wide receivers, Chris Hilton, who didn't do a ton last season, but people on the LSU end of things expect him to take a big jump. He's questionable, so it sounds like he may not play. And that could be big for USC because LSU, they need to replace those 2 great receivers that they had a year ago who are now in the NFL, and Hilton was going to be a big part of that equation. I think there's some talent in that room, of course, but there's a lot of unknowns there for LSU having to replace so much production from last season. Hilton seemed to be a big part of it. He's questionable. He may not play. That could help USC for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about stopping the run is really important for USC. I mean, obviously for LSU, and I think Brian Kelly, he had a quote. He said, SEC teleconference, we have to be prepared for everything. This is an offense that's been prolific in a number of different categories. We want to play somebody else. We're going to have to execute against a high caliber opponent. But yeah, I think, Lincoln Riley's had, I think what Jack, they shared it in the notes that it's a top 3 offense. Like every year he's been a head coach, except one was like number 6. And last year that looked like they fell off, but it was still number 3 offense in the country. Only one year he hadn't scored 40 points a game. So I wouldn't be as worried about USC's offense, and I think that could be a place where the Trojans have an advantage. Both teams stunk on defense last year, and I think both are pretty confident that they've made the necessary changes. Baker at Missouri last year was really good. Danton Lynn at UCLA was really good. Baker has more experience, being in college and stuff. But you like to see, I think both sides. But which defense improves the most could be the kind of most important factor. But for me, it's going to be, LSU's got to have to slow down what could be a really good passing attack. It's always an offense that puts up a bunch of points. And then for USC, it's more about controlling the game. They're not going to be able to give up big plays and things like that. We've seen that a lot. But really just I think stopping the run, just being able to not let LSU do the easy stuff to keep the ball and keep moving the ball and keep picking up first downs. Make them make plays. Make them throw on 3rd and 9 and complete a 12-yard pass. And if you can do that, that's great. But instead of, Oregon was really good at this with Chip Kelly. It was 2nd and 2 all the time. You could do so many different things. It's a big difference if it's 2nd and 8, and I think USC's got to get a bunch of those as opposed to letting LSU do what it wants and making their job easier. It's like you're playing the EA football game on All-American versus like Heisman. It's like a different level if you can pick up a bunch of yards on first down.
Makes a huge difference, and that's why this running game that we've talked so much about for LSU on this show today is such a key for USC to slow down. That offensive line, look at Georgia Tech. That offensive line had, I think, over 100 combined starts between them, and they were able to go and get the job done against a Florida State team that was over a 10.5-point favorite. I think, what was it, like 12.5 points at one point, or maybe it ended at 10.5. But double-digit underdogs don't win very often, and Georgia Tech did that. A lot of it was because of their offensive line. A lot of it was because of their defense. It's not always because of one singular unit. But a lot of the talk after that game was, look at teams who have a chance to overachieve, start looking at their offensive lines and really experienced groups. So USC, they have experience with Jonah Monheim. They have experience with Emmanuel Pregnon. The rest of that group is not as experienced as LSU, but at least you have a couple guys who you feel really good about in that room for the Trojans. But at LSU, that's clearly the strength of their team.
A couple other factors in the game. We haven't mentioned special teams at all. LSU has had some struggles. I think even the last 2 years they played Florida State in the opener. They've had some special teams gaffes. We've seen USC have some gaffes in the past. Definitely there's more resources been put into special teams on the USC side now, trying to improve that. I don't know if you know much on the LSU side, but what are your kind of thoughts on special teams? USC is probably going to get a new kicker from Clay Helton's team, from Georgia Southern. But I think USC is kind of trying to make some improvements on special teams because we've seen both of these teams have sort of issues there over times where they've cost you games.
I do think it's going to be a tighter operation. I don't envision if you have a chance to beat Arizona in regulation with a chip shot field goal, there's going to be a bad snap because now Hank Pepper is on scholarship from Michigan State. He's your long snapper. If you're on scholarship as a long snapper, like, you just can't make a mistake. That's kind of how I see it, and there's a reason he was brought in. I think he'll be clean. Michael Lance, he looked really good in what we've been able to see this offseason as a kicker. He's made some longer kicks, consistent, older guy. I feel really good about him. His numbers were more consistent than Lynch last season. The funny thing with Dennis Lynch, Ryan, is he made all the really hard kicks and then would miss some of the easy ones.
Yeah.
And Lance, his numbers last season,
was tough.
He missed a couple hard kicks, but he was, I think, perfect, or he only missed one from 39 yards and in. So you feel a lot better about him. And then Eddie Triplicki is back as the punter, who had a little bit of an up and down season last year, but he's another scholarship guy, and I think you have to feel better about him. So I do think USC special teams should improve. And then with Zachariah Branch back there, a lot of the LSU questions this week have been about Branch and special teams. And Brian Kelly, it sounds like, really wants to try hard not to kick it to him, but it sounds like LSU right now has two punters. So is that like the quarterback? If you have two quarterbacks, you don't really have one. I don't really know what they're doing. Whoever punts it out of bounds but still far away from Branch should probably be the one who is going to win that job, in my opinion. But it seems like they might not totally have their act together if they still have two punters. So I don't know a ton about their special team situation. I don't think they have anyone like a Zachariah Branch who is a game breaker. I'm sure they have some good returner, but I don't think it's anyone in Branch's category. So that should help USC for sure. And at practice with the warm-ups, Ryan, we are able to watch that with the kicks and the punts. We've seen some muffs, some drops. I think that's just kind of par for the course, but that could really swing a game if the LSU returner drops one or the USC returner, whoever it is back there, drops
huge.
one, especially early in the year when your adrenaline's so high at Allegiant Stadium, 80,000 people screaming. Like, a special teams turnover could certainly sway this game. So you hope, I heard Shotgun and Chris talking about this on their podcast, you hope it's a good sway, someone returns something for a touchdown instead of someone making a costly mistake.
Those guys have a podcast? I don't know.
Yeah, Helium Boys.
Helium Boys. Yeah, people have been asking for the composite 2-star. They haven't done one for a couple of weeks, I think, but I'm sure they'll get back at it. USC does have a special teams coordinator as well. So, like, they changed the rules, so now you can have analysts and stuff do on-field coaching, and I forget his name, but they kind of changed his title, so he's special teams coordinator now.
He was a special teams coordinator before.
Yeah.
He just got a title boost. I don't understand that rule because I thought, okay, now it's unlimited analysts and they can work on the field. So is he still, like, he's not an analyst now because he's the special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
But, like,
Ryan Doherty, right?
Yes, Ryan Doherty is his name. But, like, if he could be the special teams coordinator now, and he always unofficially held that position, what was stopping USC from appointing him official special teams coordinator before if now the new rule is you can have unlimited analysts. Like it seems like if you just wanted to bring in a bunch of analysts, you could. If he had more helpers helping him with special teams, that was sort of how the rule was laid out to me. But it sounds like with that rule, you can now have more coaches too. So I was a little bit confused about that. I think the analyst term is expanded a little bit. All everyone needs to know is that USC has always pretty much had a special teams coordinator, and now it's official in Ryan Doherty.
Yeah. LSU's also had problems in these openers. Now they've played some tough teams. I think they've lost their last 4, but last 2 against Florida State, at least one of them they probably should have won, and they've had a bunch of mistakes in there. So we've seen them sort of like stub their toe. USC kind of came out like, last year against San Jose State, gave up way more points than they should have. And,
yeah.
But they looked pretty good to kind of I felt like they looked pretty good like offensively just to kind of start things going and stuff. I don't know if that's going to come into it, but LSU has tried to focus on coming out and playing well in the opener because, it's
They've
tough.
lost 4 in a row.
4 in a row. It's tough.
They lost to UCLA, Mississippi State during the COVID season, or not during the COVID season, excuse me. UCLA, Mississippi State, and then Florida State the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where this is the year it doesn't matter as much. Like Florida State could win the national championship, They could lose another game and still go to the playoff and win the title. So it's not going to be debilitating if you lose this game. And I would say this even to USC fans. I want to get your thoughts on this too. Like, I think the result obviously matters. Like, you want to get a win if you can. To me, this is more about how do they look. Like, if it's a heartbreaking loss and it's close, but the defense looked a lot better, Miller Moss can spin it. They ran the ball pretty well. They did a pretty good job stopping the run. They had a fumble here on special teams, whatever it is, and you end up losing the game. This is more about, like, show me that you are better defensively, because there's just a lot of teams on the schedule that can do damage. But if you're better and you can play better and then learn off some of the mistakes you make after losing to LSU in the opener, that's going to be a better team going forward and give yourself a better chance to win. But if it's like a lot of the sloppy crap that we saw from the year before, even if you get a win, like, you didn't feel good after beating San Jose State last year. This isn't San Jose State. You should feel good about beating LSU no matter what. But if there's still a lot of like, oh my God, I can't believe they're seeing that, but they somehow squeak out a win, I probably wouldn't feel as good. I'd rather see this team look like they're better from a lot of the deficiencies we saw last year and forget what the result is, because you have a chance. It's an out-of-conference game. You have a really tough schedule. I feel like this team can go 9-3 and still get into the playoff, So if one of your losses is LSU and one of them is Notre Dame, and say you go, I predicted 9-3, you're 8-1 in the Big Ten. So you're going to the play, like, you're going to be second or third in the Big Ten. You're going to go to the playoffs. So I'm not as worried about the result as much, but I do want to see this team look better, especially in the areas they were deficient last year.
I see it the same way. Winning, of course, is the most important thing. So if they do kind of win in a fluky way, I think fans will prefer that.
They'll be happy, but yeah,
than having a dominant defensive performance and losing. But I get what you're saying, and I feel the same way. We do the Behind Enemy Lines feature where the LSU 247 sites reach out to us and they said, what's the pressure on this game? And I feel like there's more pressure on LSU because they've played these marquee openers the last 4 years and lost all of them.
Yeah.
USC, they haven't had a marquee opener since they lost to Alabama in 2016. It's almost uncharted territory a little bit for USC. And, of course, there's a lot more that plays into it than just LSU losing those openers. But Brian Kelly, it's time for them to make that jump. And USC, people will say the same about Lincoln Riley. He's a high-profile coach getting paid all this money. He's in year 3 as well. I get it. I just think LSU is a little bit further along than USC is in this rebuild. The team that Brian Kelly took over at LSU, in my opinion, was a lot better than the 4-8 team that Lincoln Riley inherited. So I sound like Riley a little bit saying, give me time. But their over-under is 9 wins, LSU. USC's is 7.5. Like, expectations are just a little bit higher for LSU. So that's why I think there's a little bit more pressure on them. To your point, though, if the defense looks a lot better and USC, say, loses like a 28-27 heartbreaking game, people will be upset, but that's something to build on. And the odds are USC's probably going to start 1-2 just based on being an underdog that first game, being an underdog at Michigan. But then the schedule softens, and if you can go on a run, Wisconsin, at Minnesota, maybe you upset Penn State at home, at Maryland, Rutgers, at Washington, Nebraska, at UCLA, like there's a chance there where you can just keep stacking wins and building something, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. The last 2 years, the regular season last season, it ended terribly. The postseason the year before, it ended terribly. If you can show that you're building something and maybe not start the year as well as you'd like, but end it on a high and build something towards 2025, that to me would be a successful season. I'm not grading this year on college football playoff or bust. I'm grading it on, can you build something? Can you be that developmental team that Lincoln Riley talks about? Can you recruit better in the 2025 class, sign a really good class, and build some momentum heading into next season when I think USC really should have a chance to make the college football playoff? Last season wasn't as good. The recruiting hasn't been up to standards that USC people expect, and I don't think Lincoln Riley isn't the right man for the job. That's not what I'm saying. But give him this year to show that he's building something, and then next year, hopefully that will play out and USC will be better. That to me would make me feel good if I'm a USC fan. If you don't make the playoff, it's not the end of the world, and if you do, amazing. That's fantastic.
No, I think they have a real shot, but you gotta show me that they can play well and play better, and we'll see. We'll learn a lot on Saturday. Before we take a break, I just want to let everyone know we've been working with a new app called Autograph. You can go to ag.fan, and if you download the app, use the code USC. But you can get all of our USCfootball.com content, the stuff that we write on the website, but also all of our podcasts and these videos. You can get all of our podcast content along with our written content all on the app. So if you like using an app, it's a really cool one to check out. And they have different, metrics where if you're consuming a lot of content, you get more points. And you can get better pricing on like tickets and merchandise and memorabilia and things like that. There's a bunch of guys from Michigan and USC actually that were part of this, and they've reached out to us. We had dinner with them like a while back and talked with them, and they have a really interesting concept of what they're doing. Tom Brady was involved in the beginning of this app, so Connor loves that. But make sure you go. So it's ag.fan and use the code USC when you download the app. Check it out. Just check it out and see what you like. All right, well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We got some questions to get to. Back in a minute, everyone. All righty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. We got a super chat. I think every super chat we get, I have to give you guys money to gamble in Vegas. So we got $5 from Alan in St. Louis. We're apparently facing the 1990 Cowboys offensive line on Sunday. Whatever. Don't care. Football is back and nature is healing. FTFO. Yeah.
I don't blame USC fans for being like, all right, enough about the LSU offensive line. Shut up.
That's funny. Young Tiny. This channel is always negative.
Oh, there it is.
That's why I don't tune in. Well, you're tuning in right now. I'm out. Okay, you're here. I predicted USC was going to go 9-3.
Last year, I predicted them to make the college football playoff and lose one game, and everyone is attacking me for my take this year. I don't think it's going to be bad every year. Last year, I just thought it was. I watched what I watched, and then we had that podcast after the Arizona game, Ryan, and we talked about how they're in trouble because they're playing like crap. And then what happened? They went on to lose 5 of their next 6 regular season games. They finished 7-5. Yes, did we all misjudge the Holiday Bowl? We did. But USC closed everything down. We were not near that team. We had no idea what was going on behind closed doors. So I give us a pass on that. Now it's a new team, a new system. A lot of people are high on them. I'm not as high. You're a little higher than I am. But hey, we can all have opinions. Everyone's too negative sometimes. That's what everyone tells me. Hey, you're too negative. You're taking it. I just try to tell you what I think. Last year I thought they'd be great. They weren't. This year I don't think they're going to be as good as you do. They'll probably be better, and I'll be 0 for 2. So there we go.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've been doing this a long time, and you get a gut feeling of like, I kind of think this is going to work, or that's a bad sign. There have definitely been some like, I'm not sure about that, but there's also been a lot of. I mean, seeing the linebackers underperform for years and thinking there's a lot of good talent in that room. Why are they not making plays? Year after year, it's happened. I'm like, oh, they hired Todd Orlando. He's like defensive coordinator focused on linebackers. They still stunk. They've been stinky for the last couple of years. And you bring in a guy like Matt Entz, who's like, I'm the head coach of the linebackers. Like, I would be absolutely shocked if they're not significantly better, just because that dude is like in control of the linebackers, he is not going to. I mean, he's going to do everything in his power to not let them stink. And I just feel there's like little things like that kind of pile up, and I think they're going to be better. Just the camaraderie thing and all of that, and the fact that Lincoln Riley's never had a big drop off. The only quarterback that wasn't a Heisman finalist he had was Spencer Rattler, and he replaced him with Caleb Williams, who won the damn thing. So it gives me a little like, I think they can do this. And if they faced like Ohio State or Oregon, I think you could really get outclassed talent-wise and maybe not be able to compete there. I'll give you, go to Michigan, the national champion, and lose. Like, that's fine. Like, it's your first Big Ten game ever, and it's on the road in the big house, and they're doing the stripes and all that stuff. Lose to LSU. But I feel like you can still, the key to me is you can't lose at Minnesota. You got to beat probably Penn State at home, unless you beat like Notre Dame. You could swap that out. Nebraska's going to be a lot better. Rutgers is going to be a lot better. Wisconsin's on the rise. Like, those are the teams to me you got to beat. And I think you could lose to some of the better teams and beat all those other teams, and your resume is going to look good because you have a lot of quality wins, against Power 5 programs on your resume. So that's why I'm a little bit more optimistic. If you had like Ohio State and Oregon on there, then I think you're going to lose like 4 or 5 games. But I think losing 3 games is pretty, achievable, but you got to play well. And then if you do that, you're in the playoffs. So I guess that's why I'm a little more optimistic this year.
Just think the margin for error is it's tough because the schedule is a lot harder. You have those 4 ranked teams on the schedule, and then there's no Stanford when they're terrible like USC had last year. There's no Arizona State when they were terrible like they were a year ago. Like, it's Utah State, and then is Minnesota going to be all that good? I don't know, but you play them on the road. I feel like they're more competent than Cal. They're more competent than Arizona State. They're more competent than Stanford was last year, even though Stanford at the end turned things around a little bit, and then Rutgers and Nebraska. So while USC will be favored in all of those games and should win them, would it shock me if they dropped one of those games? No, I don't think so. The depth on the offensive line I don't think is good enough, and the depth on the defensive line concerns me as well. And I see people, I'm tired of all the negativity. You know what would make me feel better? If they recruited better, if they did better in the transfer portal, if they just had better top-end talent. That would make me feel a lot better. And they have some really good players on this team. I don't think they're going to be bad by any stretch. I think the defense will be a lot better. But between how recruiting's gone the last couple cycles and the new conference, and now the schedule's a little bit tougher, sorry I don't feel as good about the team as some other people do, but that's sort of how I read it right now.
All right. Well, we got a voicemail, and I think it's going to talk about you and your 5
losses. Okay, here we go. Bring it.
I'm telling you, I think they're going to make the playoff.
Yes.
I think they have a good chance of making the playoff, and you're saying I'm negative. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever. It's Connor. Just blame him.
This message is for the flagship, for Ryan and crew. Hey, Ryan, how's it going? I'm glad you were able to take some time off last week. I know you've been, holding the front here at the P for the last, 3 years, haven't taken one day off, just grinding for the subscribers out there, which everyone watching this, everyone listening to this, in your cars, on your laptop at work, subscribe to the P, the best investment you can, and heck, the kids get Paw Patrol too, so it works out for everybody. This message is for is really for Connor. Not going to come at you for the predicting USC will have 5 losses last year. You took a beating on the P. I don't want to come after you for that. Just want to see if we can get you to grow that beard out, man. You teased it a little bit last year. You grew it out pretty bushy, and then you shaved. We need to go. We need to go all the way. No shaving until USC is eliminated from the playoffs. Either after they hit like 4 losses, or which I think is going to happen after they make their run in the playoffs. So, Connor, if you can do that, it'd be great. If Connor does it, I guarantee you, I will re-up when my annual subscription comes up in January. I will anyways, but I just want to throw that in just to be a little extra spice. Everyone join the P. Later. Eddie from Orange.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie. I had a wedding I had to go to on Sunday, so that's why I'm as clean-shaven as I am right now. Usually I'll have a little bit more of a beard. He loves the beard, man. He
does love your beard.
Yeah.
You had the tux on and everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Went big.
Nice. I want to let people know, too, we have Tunnel Vision is going to be back
Woo!
Thursday night. So Jack Smith He was calling baseball games in Cape Cod all summer, but he is back. If you've watched Instant Analysis from, you could see on our YouTube channel at Inside Troy, but also, on USCFootball.com. You can see he's back, so he'll be sitting in this chair hosting, and Connor and I can show you guys if you're watching on YouTube. This is our setup. So Jack will be sitting here where I'm sitting, and then me and Connor will be over there, and we will be talking all things USC and LSU. All of us will be in Las Vegas for that game, so it should be a lot of fun. Okay. We got some other questions too. Again, thanks to Alan for his super chat. Let's see. Andrew, we got a lot of questions in the chat, so I'll try to get through all these. Andrew says, if you had to place a future bet for the first 3 games, you're going with 3-0, 2-1, or 1-2. Fight on.
For the first, how many? 4? 3. Oh, 3. I'm going to keep getting raked over the coals here, but I am 1-2.
All right, I'm going 2-1. I think they're going to get either LSU or Michigan. I think they'll go 2-1 through that stretch. We'll see. We had a question from Andrew. What unit do you think takes the biggest step forward this season?
We were asked that when Chris and I did the board Q&A that led to me making my prediction that led to all this backlash. I think. Yes, I think I said the linebackers would take the biggest step forward.
I like that.
The secondary would be right there behind him. I thought the secondary last year had some good moments. The linebackers, I felt like, were the worst, so they have the most room to improve. So
yeah.
I started with them. But I do think the strength of the team is in the secondary, and the linebackers I do think will make the most improvement.
Yeah. All right. I like that. I could go defensive line potentially too. But Lance says, does Lynn coach from the box or the field?
The field. He coached on the field last season at UCLA, and he's going to coach on the field this year too.
Yeah, so we'll see him there. There's the communication aspect now. We did ask Lincoln Riley about that, or he was asked, in the captain's question also about communication. Obviously, the quarterbacks have the green dot. They're going to have the ability to communicate with the coaches. He's not saying specifically, but he gave a few names of players that would wear the communication helmet, but he's not going to just come out and say, hey, it's Easton Mascarenas-Arnold or whatever,
Even though that's who we expect it to be for the most part on defense, and then the quarterback on offense always wears it.
All right. Victor had a question. Trojan Knight alum. Chris wants to know if Lake McCree takes off this season. I don't think he means just going to not play. I think he means is he going to have a rise and be a factor in the passing game?
He'll certainly play the most out of the tight ends. I just think the way USC's roster is constructed, when they're throwing the ball, McCree will have some opportunities as a pass catcher just because he plays that position, but they're going to be targeting those wide receivers a lot more. I don't see any big change coming with how Lincoln Riley runs the offense that we've seen him run at USC, where the tight end hasn't really been all that involved. McCree, you love that he's worked so hard to come back, and he's clearly the guy that the staff trusts the most at that tight end position. He's going to be playing a lot out of the tight ends, but I don't expect him to see too many targets.
HR Pickens stuff. He's been great in the chat. Is Hudson going to start over the 4 horsemen, Branch, Lemon, Robinson, and Lane?
That's what I thought early in camp. Now I'm not so sure. It seems like it's between Deuce and Kyron for that last starting job. I think Mekhi Lemon is locked in, Zachariah Branch is locked in, Jacoby Lane is locked in, and then it's either Deuce Robinson or Kyron Hudson, one of those two.
All right. 66, lucky dude. Ryan Connor, do you think the media can make Pete Carroll being back on campus a distraction? If we struggle for some reason, will there be calls for Coach PC to be on the field?
Well, he's not back until the spring, so if they do not as well in the fall, he's not going to be there, so we won't be able to make that connection. I don't think so. He's retired. I think he's done. It sounds like he's going to be a professor, and maybe if he wants an analyst role or something, he could help. But I don't even think it would be an analyst role. I think he'd be a special assistant and just kind of help whenever he wanted. I think his head coaching days are done, so I don't think that makes a ton of sense. And what are your thoughts, Ryan? If he was thrown into like, forget USC. If he was hired in any of the big programs nationally, like, is Pete Carroll a guy who people would be excited about right now in the NIL era? So much has changed since when he had a lot of success. I don't know how good of a job he'd do, not because he's not a good coach, just because college football's changed so much.
He's almost like 80 years old.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll's great. Like, he's been amazing for the sport. But, like, no, like, you don't go back.
Give someone else a turn.
Yes, it's not. He's great. I think he'd be great as like some kind of advisory role. I don't think it's a distraction at all having him around. He's not going to be replacing Lincoln Riley on the sidelines. If they like, that's just not. No, that is negative. But I think having a mentor who's done it, different era and all that kind of stuff, and things have changed. I think that kind of stuff can be very helpful. Lincoln Riley seemed excited to have him around. Yes, I don't think it's a distraction at all. I think having people that are good at their jobs around as a consultant, it's not a threat to your job. It's just someone that, a different voice that can potentially help, that someone that loves the program. I think that's good. Let's see. So Donnell. So Connor, after USC beats LSU, we're going to change that 7-5 prediction.
8-4, baby.
There you go.
Yeah. I think if USC goes out and beats LSU, that would show me a lot. I think that would be the marquee win for Lincoln Riley at USC. It would probably be the Notre Dame game his first year right now. Right, Ryan? That's the one I imagine. He kind of needs a marquee win. Chris and Shotgun were talking about that a little bit. So it would be a marquee win for Riley. It would change my opinion of the team for sure, because in my head, I think LSU as a program's a little bit ahead of USC. And if USC can show, hey, actually, no, we're ahead of them, a team in the SEC that is projected to win 9 games, I think that would go a long way, and that would surprise me, and I'd happily admit I was wrong.
I think that it's changed things. If USC beats LSU, you should win like 9 games that season.
Oh, for sure.
If you do that, I think you change, okay, but
assuming health.
Yeah, you still might not. Like, you could still lose, but there's still a lot of losable games on there. So, but I think it's Young Tiny does not like you.
It's all right.
It's not in the chat. Young and everyone else, like, Connor is a reporter covering the team. He's not a cheerleader. He's not here to tell you that USC is going to be 12-0 and then they go 7-5 and you think he's an idiot. He's giving you his opinion on how he thinks things are going to go. We talked to a lot of players. We talked to coaches. We talked to sources. We watch a lot. We talk to people from other programs. We're trying to give you our informed opinion. That's all. He's not here to give you the, rose-colored thing. That's just not how we do things. We're going to tell you what we think. So, sorry if you don't like that, but you're still here. So I guess, A Dog's Life in Portland. Odds of seeing Jaden Mayava get into the game on special plays.
So unless Lincoln Riley's lied to me, which I guess is possible, I don't think it's likely. All offseason, I've asked him, I think 3 separate times, could we ever see a second quarterback just to give the defense a different look or on a specific play, even if Miller Moss is healthy? And he said, no, I've always wanted to run with just one guy, and that's how he's always done it at USC and at Oklahoma. I mean, when Caleb Williams was banged up in the Pac-12 championship game, when it looked like he couldn't really move at all with that hamstring, he still didn't go to Miller Moss. So maybe if Ava is closer to Moss in Riley's head, could that lead him to change his strategy? But all offseason, he said he's going to roll with one guy. So I don't think so, but I guess never say never.
We got, is it Elise? Is it going to be like a USC home game in Las Vegas?
I think it's going to be 50-50. We talked about it last week. LSU, they'll travel. USC, their fans will travel too, of course. But it's not like it's going to be a situation where USC will dominate the stands by any stretch. I don't think. LSU people, they travel really well. I think it'll be closer to 50-50 than a USC home game.
All right. Let's see. I agree with you there. This is Amercat, I think. Sorry, some of the stuff is hard to see. Since the 12-team playoff started, everyone's saying 10-2, and are in for a rude awakening. Someone's going to get left out for a G5. Okay, I think what you need to understand about the playoff, and you've made some comments here. The Big Ten and the SEC are going to get multiple teams in. Like, it's just going to happen. how that works, I think, a lot of these early games, you have to look. I think you need to root differently. You're rooting for the Big Ten. You need North Carolina to go into Minnesota and lose. They're like a 2-point favorite or something. Like, if you have an opportunity, you need USC, even if you're a UCLA fan. Well, maybe not UCLA because they're not going to be in the picture. But if you're Michigan or Ohio State or Oregon, you need USC to beat LSU because it could come down to like a 9-3 Iowa and a 9-3 Ole Miss, and which one gets in. Well, if the Big Ten has a couple of wins against the SEC, comparing different things, like all that stuff could be helpful. There's we know the tiebreakers now for the Big Ten, and they're potentially going to use some analytics that the College Football Playoff Committee uses, because the problem is there's no more divisions. Head-to-head might not apply in a lot of cases. But for me, and I think he put in the comment, like, USC is not going to make the playoff at 9-3. If USC goes 9-3 and say they lose to LSU and they lose to Notre Dame, that means they go 8-1 in conference, maybe lose at Michigan. But you would have beaten all of those other, and USC doesn't play the elite of the Big Ten with what we think is Oregon and Ohio State. But they also don't play the bottom. They play a lot of those teams, like Nebraska. I think they could win 8, 9, 10 games this year after not making a bowl game since 2016. Wisconsin, Penn State, perennial 10-2 team. You're beating all those teams. You would finish second or third in the Big Ten. You're going to be into the college football playoff. I think the Big 12 is probably going to be like Pac-12 parity. I don't think you're going to have like 2 or 3 elite teams that are going to be like in the playoff. Like, it could be Utah, it could be Arizona, but they might be a 9-3 team that gets the number 4 seed because they won the Big 12. The ACC, Florida State already took one on the chin. I don't see. Maybe Miami's going to be really good. We'll see, but I don't see them getting 2 or 3. So 5 spots are taken. 4 top seeds are all the highest ranked conference champions. One of them could be outside of the top 12 potentially, like a Big 12 team or something. And then you have probably the group of 5 champion. And then there's like 7 essential at-larges. 4, 5, 6 of those could go to the SEC and the Big Ten. I'm saying if USC is 8-1 in conference in the Big Ten and they only have losses to LSU, and I think there's a really good shot that they're going to be in the college football playoff. So I'm not sure if it works the way you think it works, but there's going to be 3-loss teams in the playoff. Like, that's guaranteed.
It's going to be interesting because I feel like people will get screwed like Florida State did. It'll, for that final 2 spots, that there'll be a lot of back and forth, and it will be interesting. Does the committee favor a 1-loss team with an easier schedule than, like, if in this situation, USC, who has 3 losses but played a tougher schedule? I'm excited to get some evidence and just to see what it looks like before I say for sure USC would be in at 9-3. I don't really know exactly. I can't project that out right now, but I get what you're saying, Ryan. The schedule is really hard, and there are teams like in the Big Ten and the SEC who deserve to be in with those 3 losses because the league is so difficult. So I get what you're saying there, but I just want to see what the committee does.
I would say, so last year, if you looked at the CFP rankings, there weren't any 3-loss teams in the top 12. LSU was 13, Arizona was 14, Louisville 15, Notre Dame 16. Those, Iowa 17. Those all had 3 losses. North Carolina, but you have to understand there's only 4 power conferences now, not 5. Washington wouldn't be 13-0 if they were in the Big Ten. As good as they were. There's going to be more losses because of these, Texas, Oklahoma being in the SEC, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington being in the Big Ten. I think you're going to see a lot more. I don't think you're going to see, as many undefeated teams, 1-loss teams. There's going to be some more losses spread out. So that's why I think it'll be some teams. If it goes exactly the way last year, no. But I think there's going to be a lot of seasons where, and especially if it's a team, Florida has like a ridiculous schedule. USC schedule is really, really tough. Florida is like ridiculous. If they're 9-3, I would say they're in the playoff. Like, you have a schedule like that. So I think all of that kind of matters.
I just want to see what it looks like because I don't think I can say definitively right now.
We have another super chat.
Woo!
Fight on MC. Fight on and beat the Tigers. Thank you for that one. Appreciate that. Oh, I didn't put up the screen there. There you go. We also had a question from AZ. We do. What's up with the tailgate? So I talked about that in the beginning, but we're having a meetup at Flankers in Las Vegas, Mandalay Bay, Friday evening, Saturday late afternoon. Put the info up on uscfootball.com. We're having a Sunday pregame tailgate at Flankers, but we've already had way too many RSVPs, so we can't get more people in. If you show up Saturday, we'll talk to the venue, see what we can do. But that's what's up with our tailgate. I think that is it.
Any more hate mail?
Let's see. No, it looks like we're pretty good there. So yeah, sorry, I was going through all the questions and stuff. It's hard to host and control the camera angles and stuff, and then find the questions and put them up on the screen and all that at once. But luckily, Jack will be here and he can do that on Thursday nights. So that'll be good. But yeah, great, fun show. Got a lot of USC, LSU talk in. We are just days away. What are you driving Friday morning?
Yeah, I think a little bit after you, but Friday morning.
Yeah, I am doing the same. I will be in the car with one of the Cilantro boys, Chris Trevino. I don't know if we'll podcast on the way, but it's a little different driving in the Tesla because you got to stop someplace for like 45 minutes to charge. So it's usually kind of fun little gathering, get together or whatever, and get lunch or something like that, depending on where you stop. Barstow is a good one because you can stop at the Chili's there. There's chargers, and then you walk over to like In-N-Out and get lunch. I like that.
That is awesome. Barstow has the good In-N-Out, like you said. That one's always crazy popular. Sometimes my AC goes in and out when the temperature is really high. So
that's not good.
Exactly. I'm excited for the 105-degree heat, and the AC will be on for 5 minutes, and then it'll blow hot air for 5 minutes. So I'm going to get through it, do what I got to do.
All right. Well, good stuff, everyone. I know we had over 200 people were in the chat. We appreciate that. Coming at you live. We did. So the timing for today, 11 a.m., a little bit different. We'll probably do a later show. This is a weird week. We're doing a lot of media stuff and we're kind of moving around with all that. But we will do probably a little bit later show before Wednesday practices going forward. So we'll let you know what's going to go on with that. But for Mr. Triple Double, Connor Morrissette, I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.